Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Matrix Dialogues. Today, I'm sitting down with my friend Michael Sowers to explore a journey shaped by resilience, self-discovery, and a commitment to growth. Michael opens up about his challenging dynamics of his upbringing and how that laid the foundation for his values and goals. We dive into his choice to join the Marines, a decision made on a whim that ultimately became a powerful catalyst of change, discipline, and deeper understanding of himself. Michael shares hard-won insights from the trials he faced in the military, including difficult encounters and harsh lessons learned through them. Throughout our conversation, we discussed the struggle to balance toughness with vulnerability, the importance of structure in his daily life, and his evolving definitions of success and failure. Michael reflects on the importance of meaningful partnerships, especially the support and growth he's found in his marriage with Christy. Together, we unpack what it means to find purpose beyond milestones, navigating life's uncertainties with strength and clarity. This episode is a raw look at a journey marked by challenges, the lessons that come from them, and the pursuit of living authentically. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy it. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Matrix Dialogues. I'm your host, Austin Boozer, and I am joined by this sexy individual across from me today, Mr. Michael Sowers. Michael's a good friend of mine, and then he married an even better friend of mine. Lucky him. But I'm really excited to talk to him about a lot of things today, taking it very deep sexually. But just having some really good conversation with him. He's a great guy. How you doing, Michael?
I'm surviving.
Just surviving?
Mm-hmm. Surviving, not thriving.
You got to be thriving a little bit.
Oh, man. I got air in my lungs.
There you go. It's better than the opposite.
It's true.
You know,
Better be seen than viewed.
Get the wind knocked out of you feels like shit.
Indeed it does.
I think it's the closest thing to death. So all you want is some air. I think it's a little taste of it. Feels awful. But,
yeah.
Well, man, I'm excited to have you here today. We've talked about it a little bit, but I'm really happy to see it actually happening and see just where it kind of goes, where it takes us. And
Dude, I've been a big fan of Between Two Ferns for a long time. So, you know, I'm excited to be here.
I hate you so much. Thank you, though. Well, I guess we'll just jump on right into it. No need to be shy.
No.
Okay, so you want to tell everyone just like a little bit about you and what you've been through in your life collectively on just like a summary overview, so they kind of know where we're going to take this.
Got a big family. Got 3 older sisters. I'm the youngest, the only boy, so it's pretty dope. Went into the Marines. Yeah.
Yeah. Heck yeah. What an intro about himself.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll start with, like you said there, being the youngest. How did the challenges of your childhood shape the man you are today? And in what ways do you think those early experiences influenced your values and goals?
I mean, I'd say we grew up in a functionally chaotic household. It was quite the dynamic, I'll say.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
Well, having 3 older sisters, maybe it's just having a lot of siblings and stuff. There's always kind of teams.
For sure.
You know, and it changed during the years of, I might be closer with one sister against the other 2. And, they interchanged throughout the years. And now that we're adults, I feel like we're all pretty tight knit.
Kind of on the same team now.
Yeah. And, because they've got kids and everything, and we all love spending time with each other and all that. So kind of separating growing up and then growing up and coming back together was just kind of interesting, kind of change to see. I mean, I love it now, but
how much older are your sisters than you?
It's almost like 2 years apart for each one, something like that.
So your oldest is about 6 years older than you?
Yeah.
Okay. Heck yeah. What was it like on the parental side of things? What was that like?
As good as it couldn't be. It was a lot of kind of whiplash of affairs and threatening divorce and stuff like that all the time. Distant parents, Like my dad was very, I'd say, present as much as he could, but he's also working all the time, traveling and all that to keep up, with a big family, and then a mom that's got a lot of mental health issues, and so that made it kind of raised ourselves in a way. Um, so it made it a little bit difficult, a little bit challenging, but
You think that's easier to do with siblings versus being like an only child?
I mean, with siblings, I mean, you have other people to lean on. When it comes to being an only child, I'd assume, I mean, you're by yourself. So if you have distant parents and all that, so I feel like that'd be a lot harder to
Yeah.
kind of navigate.
Mhm.
But at least having siblings, whether we're on good or bad terms, we still had somebody there.
Yeah.
So I'd say it wasn't too bad in
Yeah.
that aspect, mutual destruction.
Definitely. So in the second half of that question, I asked you, like, what ways do you think those experiences influenced kind of who you are now from a value to goal perspective? You mentioned there's some kind of helicopter-ish parenting along with some unhealthy relationship things. So kind of what did that do to you as you like got a little older, started to experience relationships and kind of set up an idea for what you wanted in your future?
So I say recently, I was talking with one of my sisters and kind of came to the conclusion that kind of explains why I struggle with some stuff in life now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, through like a very specific example of um, not really appreciating big goals of your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And like kind of the example that was brought up was that like when me and one of my other sisters grew up doing swim like not year round, like summer league swimming and stuff like that, and we were always at the pool doing stuff, and then she got into water polo and I was like 12 or 13 and I was like, dude, I want to do water polo too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did it for one summer, and like the very first practice we practiced and then scrimmaged and kind of learned the plays of everything and like where people are positioned and all that, and like I just off the rip did amazing. And like I'm not one to really toot my own horn, but I did really well. And by the end of the summer, our coach, he had some buddies that worked with the Houston team, um, and put in a good word for me, and I tried out with the Houston team and ended up qualifying for Junior Olympics in California.
Oh, wow.
And so only doing, water polo for a couple months, and then all of a sudden I'm going to Cali, for the Junior Olympics, and neither of my parents went. It wasn't a big deal. It was just like, hey, it's just another thing you're doing.
Mhm.
And I never, and it never really resonated with me and kind of clicked, until me and my sister were talking about it, and I was like, damn, like that's wild. Like if you're a kid that just picked up a sport, you know, um, and within a couple of months of playing that sport, they're going to the Junior Olympics, you would think,
Yeah, that'd
wow,
be a big
that's
deal.
awesome. Like I want to go there, I want to support them, but neither of my parents showed up. They just sent me on a plane, sent
Yeah.
me out to Cali, with a group of dudes that I'd never met before. Like
Mhm.
literally I'd never met. And except for one kid that I did play water polo with, he was an older cat. And so he's the only person I like had any kind of relationship with.
Mhm.
And so I had someone to kind of lean on while I was out there, but I was also like 12, 13 years old, with a whole bunch of dudes that I've never met before. And that's what I struggle with now is finding I'd almost say like appreciation in big events. Like Christy and I, we just closed on a house literally 30 days ago today.
Mhm.
And everyone's like, oh my gosh, congratulations. That's so awesome. It's y'all's first house, this
Yeah.
and that.
You're just kind of like,
And it just felt like we were moving. Like it felt like we were sleeping in a different location.
yeah.
Like no skin off our back, nothing crazy.
Mhm.
And it still feels like that. Like I'm not like, wow, I'm a first time home buyer or anything. It's just all right,
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah, just like another
Um,
rung on the ladder to climb towards.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's it's hard for me to come to terms with like big events where it's like, all right, this is a big deal. I should be excited about this.
Would you say you struggle to like be proud of yourself or like be grateful that for the accomplishment. Like, okay, I did a house, or I was really good at this sport, or I worked really hard towards this goal and I achieved it. And like you said, kind of, I asked that because I relate to that a lot with, like, I came home from deployment and none of my family showed up at all. It was just like, oh, cool, good job.
Yeah.
You know, it was like nothing was ever, like you said, celebrated or like or anything like that. Whether it was a sport, whether it was even bigger things than that, right? It was just kind of like, oh, okay. And then I'm with certain friends and partners I've had throughout my life. They're like, oh, you seem like you don't care about it. Like, it doesn't mean anything to you. I'm like, no, that's just all I know it as. It's like,
Yeah.
it's just another thing I did. Cool. Like, no matter how big or small that
Yeah.
accomplishment is, it's like I never really celebrate or feel like a lot of anything towards it. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a thing.
No, I mean, I'd say like now I kind of appreciate things more. I'm like, I have a lot more. I don't want to say like I struggle with like self-confidence or anything like that, but like I can understand like the
Mhm.
big goals that I make now. You know, I might not get excited about them, but I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. This is, you know, like a big step or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
But I don't have that like, oh my gosh, dude, you'll never guess what just happened kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
deal.
yeah. I got you. So as you mentioned, you're in the Marines. Joining that and being a part of that commitment, what was a driving force that kind of led you to that? And how has the military experience changed your approach to life?
Man, it was it started off kind of as a joke. We used to have the recruiters come to our school,
Yep.
you know, they'd set up the pull-up bars and I'd always go up and I used to be super fit and because I was just doing a bunch of bootleg steroids and stuff like that. Like literally buying them out of the trunk of a dude's car.
Hell yeah.
And
Quality.
dude, top of the line, FDA approved if you're dyslexic. And so, you know, I was very fit. I could go up and I could hammer out like 20 pull-ups. So I'd go up to the bar, hammer out 20 pull-ups, get a free t-shirt, and then like I'd look at the recruiter and toss it in the trash can just to fuck with them.
Mhm.
And because I was just an asshole.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, graduate high school, everyone goes off to college, does their own thing. I was never like a big studious guy.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 years later, because it was like I was like 20, almost 21 when I joined. And um I just got a wild hair at my ass. I wasn't doing anything progressively in life to get me ahead. Like I was working at, I think like Discount Tire at the time, making a lot of poor choices, but making just enough to get by. And I was just like, man, something's got to change. Like I'm not doing anything. I'm not going anywhere.
Mhm.
And so I was like, man, I need to do something. And so I just walked in the recruiting office in Tomball one day and I was like, hey, I want to sign up. And they're like, all right, here's all these little cards.
Yeah.
Put them in order of like what you care about. And then like didn't say anything to my family still, went to MEPS, signed, swore in and all that, and then came home. So I got into like the DEP program, and then came home, told my parents like, hey, I swore in today. I'm joining the Marines. And they were like, oh my God. That was like kind of I'd say probably the first time that they like really
something.
Yeah, like gave like a genuine like caring reaction. Like my mom started crying and all that. And I was like,
The fuck is this?
yeah, I was like, okay, whatever. And, because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I was just like, all right, I'm doing something with my life,
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so that was.
What'd you do in the Marines? I don't think I've ever asked you.
I was an armor, so
Okay. Heck yeah, you
worked on guns.
Hell yeah. In the Army, an armor is like part of the infantry. Is that how it works for you guys, or is that like a separate?
No, it's totally its own thing.
Okay.
We just handle all the weapons for every company.
Okay.
Whether you're supply or admin, and you shoot once a year for qualifying, or if you're recon, and you're pulling your gun every week.
Yeah.
So we just kind of handled everybody in it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we had a guy that was a little turd, came from the previous Marine, was an armor too, and I was like,
no way.
Yeah, wild. I was like, why would you think I'm joining the Army infantry? But here he was. Shout out old Doherty, fucking scumbag. No, great dude. I was just curious. Yeah, I didn't know because I was like, oh, we always just like assumed he was like, oh, you're just like infantry, like you're just same thing again. Because our armor, like I said, was like just a member of your company, like usually like a senior E4 or like fresh E5, who then because we were pulling weapons like every day basically to go train or shoot or whatever. So it was someone internal. So that's cool. It's interesting to know that you guys have a specific MOS for that. Interesting. What's your favorite weapon to work on, or least favorite? More importantly, I think that's interesting.
Man, I don't know. I wasn't a big gun guy going into it.
Mm-hmm.
like never really cared for him. Like I was around him growing up here and there, but wasn't, and now I have a 48 gun safe.
Heck yeah, you do.
I just have anything and everything, I feel like. And yeah, so I mean, I wasn't like all that into it. And I don't know, I guess my least favorite, they all sucked in some capacity because every single one's got some pin, some spring that
It's a pain.
goes Mach Jesus off to the left and you can't find it.
Yeah.
So they all suck in their own way. Man, I'd almost have to say probably the 50 cal, doing the timing and the headspace.
Yes, it's a bitch.
Yeah, like it's not like hard.
No,
it's just tedious. Like you're just like, oh God, I gotta do this again.
What years were you in again? Because they changed the model of the 50 cal. So the newer model was much easier to headspace and time.
Yeah, so they had the M2. So I don't know what y'all called it, but we had the M2 and the M2A1.
Yeah.
And yeah, they both just equally just kind of sucked.
Yeah, the A1s were easier to time though, because we had to do those a lot on deployment, where we pre-mission, where we have to do the headspace and time.
That's awesome.
I know, gay. But no, like I remember that, and then for us, I was a heavy weapons company, so we primarily were Mark 19 50 cal. So I spent a lot of time.
The Mark fun, dude.
It is. It's a fun thing, and even the maintenance of it isn't horrible. It just feels more fun because you know what it's going to do. The 50 just is a pain, bitch. But then we were the only heavy weapons company in our battalion. So then we'd always get stuck doing like stupid light shit. So we're toting around 50s and shit. Like, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm tired of walking with my M4." I'm like, "You dick." I've been carrying 50 rounds for fucking 20 miles today.
Yeah, but it builds character.
Oh yeah, it built something. Resentment. Hatred. No, I'm just kidding. No. Interesting though, man. I enjoy hearing about that. And the reason I asked you about like what was your kind of reason was I had my buddy on last week, another turd like yourself from a Marine. And I asked him about like a similar question because I feel like with everything that's happened in the last few years, privy to Afghanistan, like what was a leading factor for people in our age range to want to join. I've come to the realization that a lot of it was generated by like 9/11 and the culture that we were surrounded by growing up, the very like patriotic push that we had in school, and writing the letters to the guys who wrote the fees back. And it was very much like versus like, it's still around now, like what kids see in school, but nothing like the version of it we had. It was much more ramped up.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious if that was kind of an influence for you as well, or that you could take away, or you just
I
whimmed it and was like, fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, there was no one else in the military in my family outside of one of my brother-in-laws. He had already joined the Navy a couple years before me. But other than that, I mean, nothing crazy.
Can you tell us a moment in your life when you faced something intense, whether that be physical or emotional, and you had to continue to go forward? And then what did you learn about yourself in that space?
All right, we're getting deep. All right,
going there.
So probably one of the hardest things I've had to deal with and overcome was while I was in the Marines. I was stationed in Okinawa and had a one-night stand essentially with one of my junior Marines and a corpsman who was on restriction, and she was drinking with us. It was like Saturday morning, and she ends up showing up late for her check-in and all this, and we don't think anything of it. Like, some people came to our room, knocked on the door, and was like, "Hey, like, we're looking for so and so." And I was like, "Yeah, she's sleeping." They're like, "Well, she's late," and like our whole chain of commands downstairs looking for her because she had to check in like every 2 hours.
Yeah.
And she ended up passing out like in the room, like after everything was said and done, and she was just sleeping. And so I went and woke her up. I was like, "Hey, people at the door looking for you." And she's like, "Oh," grabs her stuff, gets out, and don't think anything of it. Months go by, and then all of a sudden I get pulled into NCIS, and they're like, "Hey, this is basically the charges that are in front of you right now. Like,
Jesus,
what do you think?" And it was essentially like a rape case, and she was using what happened to get out of trouble, to be like, "Oh, I was late because this was happening to me. I was being assaulted, this, that, and the other." And so it was like months and months of investigations and going through like every department you can think of. And off that first investigation that they did, or first interview that they did with me, like I come home, I'm freaking out because I'm like, okay, if I get found guilty of this, like it's obviously not true. And I had like text messages and everything like that to prove that, like I was like, hey, come on, whatever. And even still, like I came home and I was like, dude, if I get found guilty, I'm gonna be on like a registry and all this. Like this is insane. Like this can't be my life. Like there's no way. And so I got really bad into drinking, and it got to the point where I was actively trying to drink myself to sleep, like permanently.
Yeah.
And to where I was taking like handles of Tito's and just throwing them up in the air and pounding them,
Yeah.
like every day, just to like cope with it, and like hoping that I wasn't going to wake up the next day, because I was like, I can't be found guilty of this. I can't be like in my family and be labeled as this. Like even
Yeah.
though I knew it wasn't true, and like I got
Yeah.
home, called my parents, and I'm like bawling to them, and I'm like, this is what's going on, this is the situation, like this is what happened, this is what she's saying what happened. And credit to them, they're like, all right, they immediately started looking for like third party lawyers, that like not
Yeah.
military lawyers, but like civilian lawyers that deal with
UCMJ cases.
yeah.
Mhm.
And to try to beat this. And I was like, well, hold off, like I don't know if I need a lawyer, because I don't know anything. And so they were doing their stuff back here in the States, and I was over there dealing with this, like couldn't go on leave, couldn't do
Yeah.
anything. And it comes to the end of it, and sure enough, every kind of organization, like the JAG, NCIS, battalion, and everyone, they all looked at it. Everyone found that there was zero evidence that anything wrong, like any wrongdoing was basically done.
Yep.
So what's it called? And even still, my battalion commander, we had just gotten like a new one, and he kind of wanted to set like a precedent, and was like, well, even though you were found not guilty, I think it's just because there wasn't enough evidence to prove that you did it. And I was like, oh, sick, dude. So I've never met you before. You just came here. You're like at the top of the food chain of, my whole battalion. And you literally just told me you think I'm guilty, and there just wasn't enough evidence to prove it. Like, you know nothing about me. You've
Yeah.
never even met me before. You didn't know my name until it came across your desk this morning.
Yeah.
And so that was very hard. But at the end of the day, like after everything was said and done, I kind of got my drinking a little bit more under wraps, because at that point I'm like committed to it.
Yeah.
I'm like fiending for it. And it was like during COVID and all that too. So, it's like 1 week off, 1 week on kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after that I kind of had like a new outlook on life, because I was so okay with the idea of never waking up again, that like I went out and got good vibes tattooed across my toes, because I was just like, dude, every day's a blessing to like wake up. Like it's always worse. It can and it definitely can always be worse. And it was just like a whole new kind of outlook that I had, that I've like kept with now, of like everything is just, hey, it's just part of the experience. Like,
yeah,
it is what it is, whether it's good or bad. It's like, all right, that sucked. Well, let's try again. Let's do something else,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it aggressively changed, my whole outlook on life.
Yeah. There's a lot there, man. I think from one, one more thing I want from you before we move on to my portion of it is, you want to explain to everyone what like being on restriction is, for those people who maybe don't understand what that translates to.
So being on restriction is like you get in trouble. Basically, it's like if you go to the principal's office and you get in trouble for something in school, and every 2 hours, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., you have to go downstairs and check in. The duty gives you a piece of paper. You sign their paper to prove that you were there, and they sign your paper to prove that you were there.
Qualified timeout.
Yeah, essentially. And it's like that for, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 6 months. It's, however long your punishment is. That's kind of how it goes.
The military's really great at finding ways to waste your time and make your life pretty miserable.
Yeah.
And that being beyond restriction is a prime example of it. Yeah. But there's a lot. I didn't know that, actually. We never talked about that.
No, not a lot of people do.
Yeah. So I appreciate you, one, for being willing to talk about that. I know it's definitely not easy. I think there's a lot to, I don't know, my mind races when I hear that, because I've have so many other fellow soldiers who I know who have wound up in scenarios like that.
Well, and like the worst part about it is that, like, when it comes to assault cases like that in the military, 99.9% of the time, regardless of the evidence, they always fault the guy.
Yeah, no,
You
100%.
know, like there's
100%.
posters around base that's like, if you're drinking and you do this to a girl, you're wrong.
Yeah.
If she's drinking and you do this to a girl, you're wrong. If y'all are
Yep.
both drinking and y'all both do this,
Yeah,
you're still wrong.
Yep.
So
yeah, there's more accountability put on us.
yeah,
in
and
that
so
way.
that's what really ate me up is I was like, yeah, like no matter what, like no matter how much stuff I show them and prove to them, you know, no matter how many of these like investigation or like interviews and stuff that I do, they're still going to find me guilty. And that's what really ate at me is I was like, I know the outcome of this. I know where this is going to go because I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah. UCMJ and anything in that nature has many flaws. It's almost disgusting. And then the crazy thing, like you said, I think there's, even if you hadn't, like, or if you say you had been found guilty, right? Thank God you weren't. But like, then you still could be tried on the civilian side for the same thing. A lot of people don't understand that. It's like, so it's not just, so it's more cataclysmic than people are aware of for something that essentially, we've all read those stories that like a guy's life's been completely turned upside down because a girl, screamed wolf when that wasn't the case at all. But for us, it's like double whammy. Like you can get it from the military side.
We literally don't have double jeopardy.
Yeah. You can literally get tried for the same thing twice.
Yep.
Because the military is its own entity separate of civilian law. So that's crazy. And I think it highlights there too, like you said, with that battalion commander, just how, if we want to
toxic.
Yeah. Like what a toxic boss can look like at the most highest level, right? Like you said, he never knew you, didn't know who you were till like, hey, this was Sowers. He's just had this all going on. It's like, it's unfortunate, but it's the common labeling that occurs in the military, like scumbag now.
Yeah,
like, I'm going to blackball this guy. I'm going to make his life hell any way I can. I'm not going to let him get promoted. I'm not going to let him deny his leave packet for no reason. Like I'm just going to do anything I can to inconvenience this person.
Well, yeah, and the cherry on top of it was since I was proven not guilty across the board of all of it, he still gave me a 6105 because he just wanted to stick. He wanted to give me something. He was like, no, and so it was literally for having sex in the barracks. What I got a 6105 for. Mm-hmm. And I was like, sick, dude. That's the only thing you can get me for.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I'll take it. Mm-hmm. I'll take that over
everything
what
else.
It could have been.
Yeah. And something else that you brought up there that at least my mind jumps to is, you said that like you built, an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And my thought to that is like, because you said you were just scared. It's like, it's crazy what fear can do to us, and how far it can push us.
Well, I mean, and I started doing stuff like where if I did go out in town, like we'd be drinking and I'd like run out, because we're on an island and like we'd go to the beach and we'd be like day drinking and stuff like that. And I would like go to a cliff, not knowing how deep the water is underneath it. And I would just jump off. Like I've got scars underneath my arms, like from like falling and hitting a reef. Because I was just like, whatever happens, happens. Mm-hmm. If I make it up out of this water, cool. If not, cool.
That's intense, man. So what, I guess, after that, what kind of, because like you said, that kind of took you a bit to recoup from that mindset, per se, of like, you kind of built this negative relationship, so kind of almost borderline addiction to drinking and living life in that way.
Without a doubt.
How long did it take you for, you spoke about like, I'm now in this position where I'm like grateful and every day, everything can be worse. But I think to highlight for people that that's not an instant like on-off switch. No. Like it's not just something that immediately happens. There's some time there. And like, first is becoming aware that like, okay, I'm no longer fearful of anything because like the fear is dissipated, but now the behaviors that I've created are still present.
Yeah.
So how did you go about kind of like ridding yourself of some of those habits and lifestyle choices that you'd kind of turned yourself into?
It, like getting off the alcohol as hard as it was, like as much as I was doing it, it was more so that a lot of my buddies just started getting out. It was like near the end of my contract. And so like one at a time, guys were like getting shipped back to the States, getting, EASing and all that. And so I just had like less and less people to drink with. And so like, then I'd drink in my room a little bit, but it wasn't as fun. And I was just like, I'd throw The Office on or something and, make some vodka Red Bulls and like that. So it kind of whittled itself down on its own. And because I had a Yeti that I knew the exact ratio of like, all right, because the only thing I'd ever drink for the most part, was vodka Red Bull. Like if people ever saw me like in the barracks or on base, I had a vodka Red Bull. And so I knew like the exact ratio of my Yeti, where to pour the vodka and where to pour the Red Bull.
Mhm.
And the Red Bull was just there for color. And what's it called? And one of Christy's like favorite stories is whenever I first came home, I was like, all right, let's make some drinks. And so just muscle memory, I pour a vodka Red Bull to the exact ratio that I did before. And I took one sip and I thought I was going to throw up. I was like, holy shit, dude.
Mhm.
Like, and I used to drink it like it was water.
Yeah.
I was like, how's I doing this? Like, this genuinely hurts. Like,
Yeah.
this is insane. And she's like, yeah, that's how bad it was, you know?
How do you think embracing discomfort in those scenarios has molded who you are now? Like, has it made you better?
I wouldn't even say I embraced it. I feel like I just caved to it, and just pushed to, I guess, just to survive when I was trying to not survive. Like it's a weird dynamic, of just not caring, like caring but not caring. Because I'd like role play these scenarios in my head of like, you know, if I did drink myself to death tonight, you know, who would give a shit? Which one of my family members would show up? Which, I know they all would, but it was like these thoughts where I was just like, who even cares?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. They don't care. No one cares.
Mhm.
And it's such an eerie feeling. Like, even now I'm like, dude, there's no way. Like,
Do you find yourself like working yourself up by those thoughts? Like, if I died, who would show up? And then in your head, you'd like list off people, and then you like get pissed off at people who you think wouldn't show up.
back then, yeah.
Yeah. Let me sure I wasn't the only one.
Now, yeah, we're all a little twisted off, dude. Yeah, now I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, the people that I have around me, I know will show up,
For sure.
kind of thing. It's like, if you know my birthday, I know you'll be there.
Yeah.
What's my birthday?
I can't say I know.
Yeah, because you won't fucking be there.
Damn, way to fuck me like that. Do you know mine?
No.
Oh, okay, great. We're in the same fucking boat.
I barely showed up to this.
He said, "Where are we again?" Can't fucking quite remember.
This isn't Casting Couch.
Oh shit, wrong camera. The layout's close though.
Feels homey.
I think it's interesting you said that though. I've not heard someone say that because I always use the analogy. I think that like you either overcome it or it kills you. That's kind of the frame that I will present it in. But I think it's interesting that you said like you kind of just caved to it, like not that it was an embrace. That's interesting. I just have like, why do you feel it was that versus like that it was like maybe I fought it for a while, then there was some acceptance versus like.
Well, I'm more referencing to like the drinking because of the whole assault case that was going on. Of like it felt like it was so out of my hands that. Yeah. And there's like an old saying that like I heard forever ago that I loved, and it was like, if you can do something about a problem, why worry about it? Because you can do something about it.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit? If you can't do something about it, why worry about it? You can't do anything about it.
Exactly.
And it was one of those things where it's like, I can't do anything about this, but this is going to be so detrimental to my life in general. Like, I can't have trick-or-treaters come over and stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's just a plethora of negative that comes with it, whether it's true or not. No one cares. Yeah. They just see you they just see you as like a red dot on a map.
Yeah.
And
you were what? You were like early mid-20s at that point? 24?
23, 24?
Yeah, that's a lot of life to be looking left in front of you still, and like, fuck, what's the rest of my life gonna look like?
And that's why I was trying to cut it short, because I was like, I there's no way I can't respect myself enough to have this label on me. And knowing that it's not true, and no matter how much I preach my case to people,
yeah, like you said, they don't care.
Yeah, and I didn't even tell Christy about it. So Christy, whenever me and her got together, I still had like a year left in Japan. She was back here in the States, and she only knew that I liked to drink. She didn't know why. And it wasn't until like 2 years after us being married that I finally told her about it. Like, this is why I was drinking so much. And she's like, why didn't you tell me sooner? And I was like during like the investigation portion and all that. And I was like, I didn't want to tell you this and have to be like, look, it's not true. I swear,
Yeah, you're trying to get
blah, blah, blah. Because immediately, as soon as you say that, like, hey, I'm under investigation for SA, that immediately puts an image in people's mind or an idea in people's mind. And I didn't want that because I finally found someone who I was happy with and all that. and was bringing out the better side of me. And I was like, I don't want to ruin this off of something that's not true. And that was like a hard thing for me to do, to like just not come clean, but like just open up to her. Like, this is why I was drinking like that.
Mhm.
Like, I couldn't handle reality, like
Yeah.
in the future of what it might hold with like with the unknown. And I feel like that really brought us a lot closer,
Hmm.
because I was, it was like one of the first times I was being like really, really, really vulnerable with her,
Yeah.
which is something that I've also struggled with, of like just being vulnerable with people in general.
Yeah. What do you think part of that's driven by your childhood experiences there?
Yeah, it's like a psychology session. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it could. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know.
I ask because a lot of these things that you're hitting on are very relatable for me, and exact areas that I have equivocally struggled in, and have plagued many relationships in my life due to an inability to be vulnerable, despite wanting to be, right? And
Yeah.
it never comes from a lack of like, I don't want to tell you things, just like like we said earlier, like that fear, like I'm scared to tell you these things.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to react to it.
And like you said, like, oh, I'm finally like happy with someone. I kind of like them. Like, well, fuck, the last thing I want to do is like run them off because
Yeah.
we all have our own shit, and no one's getting out of life without being scathed by it. So, but I just asked that, yeah, not to like, like I don't even know, like rate you down here or some mental capacity way, just to because they're relatable for me.
Yeah.
And I try to be so reflective and assess myself and like, why do I have these things happening? Because they're things I don't want to continue to ruin things for me or detriment relationships that I care about today. So I'm like, okay, well, if I can figure out why I'm doing it, then I can just work backwards to
Yeah.
unfuck it and not be doing it anymore. But first, it's like, well, why is it happening?
Yeah.
So that's why I ask you that, is to see if you could find any correlation to things that I have had to learn the hard way or gain some insight from. And again, maybe I'm a little bit more fucked up than I think. So who knows? But that's why I asked that. With everything you've been through, how do you define success today? And how has your perception of failure changed throughout time?
I mean, I'd say success to me now is, am I happy? Am I healthy? Am I surrounded by people I want to be surrounded by? And, it doesn't come from like a business perspective or a financial perspective. Like, me and Chris could be living in a box, but if we're just peachy clean up in that box and we love it, that's success to me. I'm with someone that I care about. I'm living my life. Whether it's for better or worse. Like, that's kind of more so how I define it. I guess define it. As long as we're progressively moving forward, whether it's one step at a time or we're leaping, at a time. Just some sort of forward progress that also is aided by like happiness.
Yeah.
Because, I went from the darkest time of my life just a couple years ago to now. Like, I'm thriving. Like, I'm having a blast.
Mhm.
Just every day it's just like, all right, what are we doing? Like what I was doing a year ago today is not what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
Like completely different.
Mhm.
I'm not having to look at your dad anymore every day.
It's definitely easy on the eyes.
Yeah. He's not.
He's not. Fuck. I love that. How has your perception of failure changed? So you talk about the happiness piece or success, happiness being with those people you want to be with. How has your perception of failure evolved throughout time?
I'd say that, I mean, the way that I look at a lot of stuff now is like something as simple as doing a DIY project at the house. If I fuck it up, I'm like, okay, that's the wrong way to do it. Technically, is that a failure? Sure. But I'm like, okay, now I know how to not do it next time. Let me try something different. I don't like to just like throw in the towel. I like just really trying to break it down and figure out, okay, how can I get this? How can I do this? How can I make this better? Yeah, I think.
You think? Don't hurt yourself. You look like you're overheating a little bit
Yeah,
there.
dude.
No, I like that. I think my approach to that is very similar, which is kind of taking the perspective of like every opportunity to fail is an opportunity to learn. So by default, the failures are just that much closer to getting it right.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing it as like, oh, it's wrong again. It's like, well, I'm just that much closer to figuring it out.
Yeah, and it's like some people like they fail and they're like, "Oh, woe is me. The world, it's over.
Yeah.
I messed it up. That's all I'll ever try. I'll never try it again." And it's
Mhm.
like, "No, dude, like that's not the point of it."
Yeah.
Like,
Because if you could just know that you're going to get it right the first time you did it, like what would be the point of doing it?
yeah.
If you just know, like, oh, I'm going to get in one relationship and it's going to work out. I'm
Yeah.
going to do this project one time and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be just like the one that I
Yeah.
saw that I wanted it to be.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
there's no growth there.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't think it means anything because everything that I've experienced in my life that has been culminated by failure and just had failure after failure after failure, it's like I never am overwhelmed by the success at the end. I'm
Yeah.
always like looking over my shoulder, proverbially, at like the path to get there, like all the things that I could have gave up on, but I didn't. I said, like, I'm
Yeah.
going to do it one more time. I'm going to just try it one more time, and the fact that I didn't give up on it. So I think collectively, there just to highlight that getting what you want isn't always what you think you want,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not as fulfilling as the fact that I could have gave up on it and I didn't. And I
Yeah.
chose to try again. And I chose to like say I'm going to just give it one more try, or take another stab at it, whatever analogy you like the best. But just that the value is always in the progressive act of moving through it rather than accomplishing.
Yeah.
And I think that can be seen through many things in life.
Well, I think people can like lose sight on it too of like once they finally do achieve, they're like, "Oh, okay, I got it." And it's like,
Yeah.
"No, dude, like you crashed and burned 15 times before you finally succeeded. Like that's something, you know?"
Yeah. That way, that analogy, or that example you gave, that's me. I'm 100% that person. Like I could fail at it 100 times and get it, and then I kind of, like we mentioned earlier, just kind of like,
Yeah.
like that's it. I struggle to actually be proud of myself in any real way, no matter what I achieve.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I asked you some of the questions I did, because I was like, oh, is this similar to the emotion or for the feeling, the things what I struggle with inversely? So now I can totally yeah, that's me. Fuck it, get mad to 1,000 times wrong, and I finally get it right, and I'm like, all right, next thing.
Yeah.
Like there's no like celebration or appreciation for it. Maybe internally I do at some point. Sometimes I'm trying to be more proactive about that, but it's truly a struggle, and one that I think a lot of maybe inherently men, in particular, kind of are very silent about.
Yeah.
Because of the expectations put upon us that are, again, like it's a privilege to have the burden of responsibility, and for having to be responsible for so much. But I think that comes along with that, like anything, you can build a negative relationship to all the accomplishments you have
Yeah.
if you don't take the time to smell the flowers, as they say. Um, Not always, but sometimes. And if you can't appreciate the small wins along the way, the big win at the end won't feel like anything anyway.
Yeah.
And then you'll be still feeling empty and like, what did I do it for?
Yeah.
So that's something I've been trying to move a little bit more progressively towards, is like taking time to smell the flowers along the way and appreciate the incremental small wins.
Yeah.
So that way, when I do get the big one at the end, I can actually feel something, and then feel all of it for what it is. So in the military, we get a lot of structure towards discipline. Do you carry the same sense of order and structure in your everyday life now that you did maybe in the military, or what are some things you took away from the Marines?
Man, I'm super OCD when it comes to cleaning. Like
Fuck yeah.
I love to clean now. I never cared for it.
Mhm.
A vacuum hates to see me coming, dude.
Hates to see you coming.
Yeah. I used to make fun of like chain of command. I was like, man, it's so dumb. Why does this have to go all the way up to the top and all the way back down? And just get one answer back. Now that I'm in corporate America, I'm like, no, there's a structure to this. Like, how does Michael Phelps win races? He stays in his fucking lane. Like,
Yeah.
there's a path. There's a certain people you have to go through to get certain answers.
There's a reason that's there.
Yeah. So now I appreciate like a chain of command, I guess you could say. And like just kind of like that structure. And it's easy to translate going from the military to corporate America. Because you already kind of have an understanding of it. Whereas some kids, like, they were with mommy and daddy, then went to college, never knew any kind of structure like that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden get into like a big job and they're like, whoa, what? Like I have to ask them to ask them to ask them to ask them if I can have the day
I'll
off.
just go ask the CEO if I can call out today. It's like, yeah, you'll do it one time.
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think there's a, like you said, there's a value there to the structure. I think there's a lot of wastedness because, again, just as much as there's a value to structure, there is some wasted effort and time. And that's like, sometimes it doesn't need to go all the way to X level, right? Like you need immediate line of leadership to make decisions and be willing to be decision willing, right? I think we see that holistically in the military too, where leadership's unwilling to make a choice. And you're like, yo, even if I don't care, just fucking make one. I don't want to make every decision for you. And that's what you find with higher leadership anyways. They just get pissed off that 3 other layers of people were too scared or unwilling to make a choice. It's like, why the fuck is this even coming to me? You know, like, why'd you like, when did this come up? 4 weeks ago? Like, why none of you thought you could make a decision on this?
Yeah.
You know, and so I think, again, it's inevitable. It's part of the process per se, but I think that would be my caveat to it, is I actually generated a lot more of like learning, for me personally, just the willingness to like just make a choice.
Yeah.
Right. To save fellow soldiers time and leadership time for stupid decisions that could be made. Because in the worst case, they just go, hey, why didn't you fucking run that by me? Cool. Hey, next time I will.
Yeah.
But then on the flip side, it's like, oh, hey, thanks. Appreciate it. Like there was an equal opportunity for both, but at least I was always like under the assumption, if they don't like it, they're going to tell me.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not hearing any of that, then the decisions I'm making are okay.
Yeah.
Right. If I overstep my rank per se in my decision making, I'll know.
Well, so that's what was nice about once you get into a rank, and like for you had like, you know, junior soldiers and I had junior Marines below me. And it was nice being able to almost be like an umbrella, you know, for the shit that would come back downhill towards us. And it's like, hey, dude, we got to do X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry, but you know, we're all in this together. Let me see how I can take more of this on, and y'all can go fuck off and play Fortnite or something or whatever, go drink or do whatever. So it's a fun kind of dynamic of a chain of command, but then also being somewhere in the middle of it, because you can either be like, okay, no, that doesn't need to go higher, and you can give an answer, and you don't have to give them the run around and wait for it to go all the way back up and down. Or vice versa. Like it's like, okay, dude, hey, I can't. I don't know. That's me. Yeah, I don't have the collar for that.
Other than your OCD to cleaning, any other things that you think you take away from the military that you catch yourself, maybe almost in like a ha-ha way? You're like, oh, hey, like that it still lingers in the way you do things today.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, it's like the cleaning is like a big thing, like a big thing. Like
big thing.
Dude, I'm telling you,
can't overstate it enough.
Yeah, like we've got 3 Roombas in the house. My goal is to have a Roomba in every room.
That's fucking insane.
Yeah,
you're a bit,
dude. Coming home to a freshly vacuumed carpet,
so nut
hard. I love it so much. Something else. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I'll give you an example for me, and maybe that'll give you something. For me, I think resilience is you have to be willing to like just take so much shit in the military, like we said, with the runaround game or like the wasted time. Like you have to be able to like take all of that and still like press on. So I think for me is one that it took me a while to be aware of and appreciate, but it was like how resilient I had become to just stupid shit. It was like something just had to be insanely challenging for me to be like, oh man, like this is gay, you know, like I'd be upset about it. I was like, oh, like perspective to relativeness, like, oh, this isn't near as bad as 10 other things I can think of off my head that I would hate way more than this. And I don't know, I think there was something freeing to that. So I'd say again, like it took me some time to catch it. I was just like, damn, I'm pretty fucking like I can hang in there for a lot of shit. And I was like, how did I get to this? Like, where did I get this from? And it was like, all my fucking wasted time and energy and efforts that will never be seen or valued. And it's like, then like you said, you weren't very school savvy, we know. But even in like school, was like I was willing to give a good effort, whether anyone noticed or not, or whether it was going to get seen by my boss or not. Like I was like, I want to do the best I can because like it's for me. Yeah. And I think that was driven by the resilience I kind of picked up in the military.
So then I'd say like perspective, just like seriousness, because I like to goof off and have a blast.
Same.
But when I got out, I was like, I'm not going to go to college. I wasn't studious in high school or anything. Like I graduated, barely. And yeah, so I was like, man, college isn't for me. I never want to go to college. I never want to work like a 9 to 5 behind a desk. Like I love just being outside, working with my hands, doing something. So when I first got out, I started working for a water well company and I loved it. And I still talk to a lot of the guys over there. And just one day I was like, man, like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, working on a drilling rig or going on service calls, working on people's wells, putting in septic tanks and stuff. Like it's fun. Like it's a blast.
Yeah.
And it's just a bunch of feral dudes, just a bunch of blue collar guys that don't give a shit about anything. Like just having fun. And I was just like, you know what? Like I kind of want to do something like a little bit more than this. I was like, you know what? Let me see what school's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And then lo and behold, Steve Wanamaker comes across me.
Fucking guy.
And what's it called? And from there, like, I got on Adderall and like really started just crushing it. And like even that alone, like that was hard for me to like come to terms with because I was like, what the fuck? Like, how am I doing this good? Like, I've never been studious.
Yeah.
So how am I getting these good grades and stuff? And I was trying to transfer eventually to A&M because I was going for, I changed majors like 3 times. And I ended up settling on construction science because I wanted to be a builder, but I wanted to do commercial building, not residential.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was doing all the math classes and like everything, and I was crushing it. And what's it called? And then in January of this year, I had to have surgery, and so it put me back. It put me back in school, and so I was like, you know what? Like I'm going to take the semester off because I was really worried about keeping my GPA up because because I'm trying to transfer. And so I ended up dropping for the semester, and I'm glad I did because then like in March I had to have a second surgery because the first one like didn't really take. So it would have like really put me behind, but the previous semester I was working as a work study down at the gym at the college, and my now CEO, he had like a community membership and was coming in, and he'd pick my brain, and I come to find out it's because he was like subtly trying to figure out who I am. And he'd come in and we'd be like, oh, it's raining. Sure could use it. Like nothing like really philosophical at first. Because I'd be in there working out or putting weights up or whatever, and he'd be working out. And we started having like deeper and deeper conversations, and he would tell me about like his family and like what he does and all this. And he was like, is construction science, is that kind of like project managing? And I was like, yeah, kind of sort of just a different career field. So, they chalk it up to a different name to tickle everyone's warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
And I was like, but yeah, it's essentially the same thing. You're dealing with vendors or builders or whatever, trying to make everything come together. And he was like, look, I'd love to bring you in, you can do like an internship at our company. I just bought it over and with me and 2 other guys and took the whole company over and all this. And we're trying to change everything up, change the culture up. And so I was like, yeah, like I'll come check it out. And so went over there. And I was like, yeah, I think I'll do like an internship. So I quit at the gym and then started there, a couple hours a week here and there. And then had the surgery and dropped out. So I just went full time and just really picked it all up. So wasn't even doing like any kind of like project managing or anything like that. I ended up going like underneath him as like inside sales. So I was doing like the 2D drawing and like the quoting and stuff for projects, and just really took the ball and ran with it. And like, I'm not going back to school, man.
Yeah.
I'm traveling, I'm having a blast. I'm having so much fun getting to meet people and do projects that, for the, some of the things that we do are, prison transports and stuff like that. So there's not a lot of, I don't want to say like gratitude in that.
Yeah.
But like just a couple weeks ago for the city of Baton Rouge, we delivered 2 like mobile outreach vans that we did. So that they can, like the city can go out into the community and, people that can't get into the city to fill out paperwork or, whatever it might be, because they're disabled or they're too old or they don't have a license or something, they can go out to them and get them signed up for activities or get the kids signed up for like summer activities and stuff like that. And, the lady that we were working with the city, She's like, we've been trying to get this project going for years because government, works super fast. They're on the ball. And she's like, I've been trying to get this going for years and years. And so she shows up and so we could do like a tutorial of like, hey, here's how you do this and that on the vans. Because they're basically like mobile offices, we put generators and ACs and TVs and stuff like that in them and workstations and all this. And she shows up and gets inside of it and is just oohing and awing over it. And then she gets inside and starts getting like teary eyed. And we're like, oh, Miss V, it's cool. It's cool. Like, it's a good time. And she was like, no, like, she's like, you don't understand like the impact that these are going to have like on the community. And so it's like those like good, like wholesome, projects that we get to do where it's like, man, this makes it all worth it. Like to me, this is just, it's another project we're doing, but to her, this is something that she's been trying to do for years and years.
Yeah.
And finally was able to get through all the red tape to get it through. And is like, no, I see where this is going to go. And I can, she's like, I see the impact of like what this is going to do and how this is going to just totally change the way that they can interact with the public and all that.
Yeah.
So it's, it's nice to see, some government workers that like actually care. It kind of gives hope.
I think that's the majority, honestly. But it's like the minority are the ones that win.
Yeah,
like majority of people really do care and they want to do a good job. And usually, people who get into that kind of work do it for the right reasons because they want to actually. They are personally have been impacted or affected by something like that, and so they are trying to give back or something of that nature. But it's it's like you said, it's the red tape or the unrelentless hierarchy of leadership you have to go through to get an approval for something that really make the process slow. But I want to bring up something back that you mentioned earlier, and because with what you experienced as a kid and view of relationships, being married to someone that you love and care about and really share that deep connection with, what do you think is the essence of a meaningful partner, and how does Christy support you and challenge you?
I mean, it's that right there is, supporting each other alone and really, really challenging each other. I mean, the question is the answer in that. Like we both challenge each other constantly on stuff. Yeah. And so it's like with her, she's got this, she's got a college degree and all this and went into teaching. And she loves the kids and all that, but the overall, she loves her coworkers and all that, but she's like been wanting to do something different. And it's always like, I want. And so like, I've been like really pushing her of like, all right, let's do something. Like, let's figure something else out, because the degree that you have, you can't necessarily use to do what you want to do. It was, a dream that she had before, and it doesn't translate well now. She'd have to go back to school, get a master's, and even then it'd still be difficult to get the job.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, like, let's work with what we got. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what are your dreams and aspirations? Like, don't do a job that you get paid a lot, but you're like, oh, fuck, man, I hate to go to work,
Yeah.
Like, what is something that like you like hold near and dear, like that you care about? And she's like, I want to help people and in some capacity. And so then we started looking at like different social workers and stuff like that. And like with her degree, she could work in like a prison as like a counselor. And I was like, no, we're
not doing that.
You're all of 5'2". You're not working in a prison. And she's like, all right, well then there's juvenile like detention centers. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. I don't want you around like that kind of stuff. Like I want you to be happy and enjoy your job. I don't want you to be put in potential harm's way. And so then she was like, well, what about a social worker? And I was like, yeah, let's send you into someone's home where you have to interview them to potentially take their kids, because I'm sure they're thrilled about that. I was like, no. And so then talking to my CEO about it, he adopted 2 of his kids years ago. Adopted one of them from Ukraine, and the oldest from Ukraine's got Down syndrome, and then the next one down that they adopted was stateside, and she's got Down syndrome, and she's autistic. And so talking to him about it, he was like, well, why didn't you get involved in like an adoption agency? Because like, you know, instead of trying to like take someone's kids away from them, you know, you're bringing families
Yeah, the
together.
other side
You know,
of it.
people who have been like struggling, whether it's like they just can't get pregnant or they're too old, or, you know, there's a plethora of reasons. But like you're bringing people together. And she like immediately jumped on that and was like, yeah. So like that's like a new avenue that we're like looking down to see.
What kind of ways has she challenged you?
If I'm making poor choices in any capacity, she'll be like, do you think that's like good for you? Do you think that's good for us? Do you think that's good financially? And we'll just like, she'll just ask the question of like, do you think it's a good choice? I'm like, probably not.
Yeah.
Like, so her way of challenging me, I guess, is almost like a lot of snapping me back to reality of like, hey, you have a family now. Figure it out. Like, you know, and it's nothing crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'm not sucking dick under a bridge for crack.
Not
you
anymore.
know, not anymore. Yeah,
Yeah.
because she asked the questions. It's
Growth.
you know good for the family. But yeah, just stuff like that, and like especially when I was in school and I was, you know, and I had classes like anatomy where I was just like, dude, this is so much information. You know, because like with a math class, there's formulas. It's like, all right, you plug these numbers in, type it into your calculator, you'll get close to the answer, and it's not bad. But you know, stuff like anatomy where it's just pure memorization, and I would just get super frustrated because I'm like, what the fuck, dude? There's so many terms and so many like body parts and cells and this and that, and I'd be like, dude, I'm done for the night. And she'd be like, you have a test tomorrow. Come on, you're not done. Keep going. Get your flashcards. You got this. Like, stop, just spiraling. I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck. Fine, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a lot very prevalent when I was in school because although I was doing well, I still had that mindset of like, I'm not fucking studious. I don't know how I'm getting these good grades. But on the flip side, it's because I was getting pushed of like, no, keep studying, keep doing this, keep reading. You need to finish that chapter. No, you need to go up to the school like before class and study before your test, this and that. So it was a lot more prevalent then, for sure.
What do you think some of the unseen benefits of like a quality partner? You can probably, I would challenge you to think of that way if you're struggling to think of something of like things you didn't see growing up, or that you're like, I don't want something like that.
Just having someone who's proud of you, like the smallest accomplishment. Like I'd go at like school again, dude. I'd go and do a test and be like, I fucking bombed that. Like that was horrible. I didn't know any of it. And then I get the grade back and it's like a 95, and I'm like, oh, that's better than I thought I did. And she'd be like, no, like that's badass. Like you fucking crushed it. Like you earned that. You did that on your own. Like no one else got that grade for you. So it's like just having someone who's like proud of you just because. Like there's, you know, she's not getting anything out of it at the end of the day. You know, it's just she's just happy to be there and see that I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Which I feel like I really didn't get a lot growing up. You know, it was just we had accomplishments, but they were just kind of brushed over as like, okay.
Definitely. I love that, man. I think the value of just quality people around you can 10x any aspect of your life in the best ways and mitigate so much of the hardship that is guaranteed to befold upon you in life.
Yeah.
By just having, you know, it's definitely a quality over quantity thing. You know, a couple of good people can really make life worth living and help you endure the suffering.
Yeah.
As to where a whole bunch of really shitty individuals can almost do the opposite of that and make the suffering worse, and rather than not having
10x it.
Yeah, 10x all the bad things and negative 10x all the good things. Yeah, it's just something. It's a component of that I haven't gotten to talk a lot about on this show. So it's something that, as I've known Christy a long time, you know, I know the kind of person she is, and as I've grown to know you more and more, kind of getting to know who you are a bit. Just things I wanted to ask to put that out there for other people, so that maybe if they're looking at their life or reevaluating things, going like, oh, am I in the best kind of relationship, or what is even the point of being in it, and they could maybe hear something from someone who has got a pretty good one to know what to be able to look at. Life after the military can be tough. I think we both can correlate to that. You can kind of feel a little aimless, a little lost on what direction you're supposed to go, what drives you today, and how do you kind of touched on a little bit, but how do you navigate the transition back to being a normal person?
Man, I when I got out, like I was in Japan, came back to Cali, separated, and then came home, and I took like because I had like 60 days of terminal leave, so I had like 2 months worth of paychecks that were still going to come in.
Mhm.
So I was like, I don't need to get a job. Like I'm good. I'll just relax, dude. I went like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I was like, fuck this. I can't not do something. Like I have to go do something. Um, And so Christy was like here in Houston, and one of my buddies offered me a job up in Dallas, and I literally packed all my shit, went up to Dallas, and would come down like on the weekend, or she would come up and see me. I did that for like a month, and then I was like, man, this isn't it, because I got promised like hours and
Yeah.
this kind of pay and this and that, and it just wasn't there. So I was like, fuck this, dude. So I came back down. And that's whenever I got connected and got into the water well company. So I don't feel like I had like that bad of a transition, because I know that some guys like they cripple of like they just don't have that structure anymore, and
Yeah.
some dudes thrive on being told what to do, what to wear, what to eat, when to be when and where, and all
I
that.
think
Yeah,
we all know a bunch of them.
yeah, and like I feel like I didn't have that bad of a transition. It was more of like I just couldn't sit idly by, and that's more so like my ADD than anything else.
Same.
Is that I'm like, oh, I just need to do something,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I don't feel like I necessarily had too bad of a transition. Coming back, it was just like, okay, I'm going from one job to another job, where now I'm just getting yelled at a lot less.
They still tell me I suck, just differently.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think I struggled more from the like, what does the work I'm doing mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess the fulfillment aspect of work. Um, being in a combat job, you kind of get this like high sense of fulfillment of like the work I do could potentially actually mean something. And
Yeah.
so I think that was the harder part of transition for me. It was like going from that to like, now I'm just this fucking nerd college kid, like going to school,
Yeah.
coupled with the, like you said, couldn't sit still, had to do something.
Man, I'd say that the only hard part was the camaraderie
Yeah.
and like the brotherhood. Like,
Yeah. It's just very different than anything else.
yeah, like now I
Outside of
have
that.
coworkers, and
It's not the same. It's not the fucking same.
no, not in this. Like it's dudes that you were with for maybe 6 months that you're like,
Yeah.
I know you better, and I'm closer to you than someone I grew up with.
Yeah.
And it's the weirdest thing.
I think, now I've, because I'm pretty lame and just do this like reflecting thing. I've often like tried to understand what drives that
Mhm.
camaraderie so well, like you said. I think it's just in the fact of like, especially easy, like you don't even need a lot of time. So it's like, what is the thing that's happening to create that? It's like the amount of amount of experiences, what you're enduring in that period, whether it's short or long, is like amount of things that's happening.
Yeah.
It's like the more semi good or bad, we're on the spectrum between good and bad, like it can land anywhere between there. But if you just up that frequency of like 300 of them, because you're spending 18 hours, sometimes 24 hours, like your
Mhm.
whole day with these people, it just like ups the frequency for those types of things to happen.
Yeah.
And because of the structure of the military as a whole, like you're going to get quite a bit of stupid shit, wasted time, or hard things to
Yeah.
endure with these people. So it's just going to it's going to open up that greater opportunity for random conversation to come up about, aspects of our life, because you're just sitting around wasting time anyway. It's like, well, let's fucking actually do something with this.
Yeah.
So you start, talking about weird or hard things that happen to you, because you're just like, oh fuck, if I can't talk about it with these people, who can I talk about it with?
Yeah.
So kind of just, if you boil it all down to me, it's just like there's more time spent, forced inevitably. And then you're also enduring some like harder, challenging things. So it's like it kind of generates that vulnerability, because it's like I have to be like, I have to trust that you would fucking shoot this bad guy for me.
Yeah.
So like I need you to I need to know I can trust you.
Yeah.
So there's an underlying sense of vulnerability there. But yeah, it's very different than the civilian side, though. Coworkers are definitely not soldiers. They're just not. And they don't, for many good reason. The world couldn't handle 300 million of us here in the States. We'd be a fucking train wreck.
Yeah.
But no, I think that was the only tough part for me. Yeah, just like I said, finding fulfillment and meaning in the things I did, as I was wanting it to be just like what it was before. And it's accepting that it's never going to be like that again. It's just
When
gonna
it's
be
like when
different.
people like, whenever they find out like that I was in the military, and I'm sure this is the exact same for you because we're very similar. But when someone's like, "Oh my god, like thank you for your service," I'm like, "Yep,"
Yeah.
because I'm like, even in the moment, I'm like whenever I was in, I'm like, "Am I really making that big of a difference?" Like I'm just fixing weapons. Like I'm not doing anything. I'm not kicking down doors, and
Yeah.
I didn't go fist Osama bin Laden myself. So
Heavy on the fist.
heavy, yeah, and so like even now I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. it's weird.
No, agreed.
I never know how to respond to it.
Yeah, I'm like, thanks.
I saw like one dude, he was like, the best way to answer this is like, well, you're worth it. Like when someone's like, thank you for your service, like, well, you're worth it. And I was like, that's
A lot of motherfuckers aren't.
yeah.
That's all really what it is. We're talking
Yep.
the truth here. A lot of you motherfuckers weren't worth shit.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that to anyone respectfully. With the utmost respect, I'm not telling anyone.
Yeah.
That. Wow. Molested and thank you. What a time. During difficult times, what's your source of grounding? And are there practices, anything that you do, beliefs that you have that constantly help you navigate your challenges in life?
I say now it's Christy and my sisters. Like if there's any kind of issue, like everyone's on the same page. I can just, I can go to them for anything, like judgment free. It's like Planet Fitness in my family now.
Hell yeah.
Sibling wise. And it's like any trial or tribulation that we go through, like me and Christy or me alone, or if Christy's doing something, like dealing with something, like I can just go to my sisters and be like, what would you do? How would you navigate this? Because they're all in therapy from my biological mom. And they're all like, you need to go to therapy too. Like you could benefit from it. And I'm like, why would I go to therapy? I just come to y'all. Y'all see a therapist. I'll ask y'all questions online.
And therapy.
Yeah. And then y'all give me answers. And I feel like it's the same answer a therapist would give me. So in lieu of, I feel like I'm getting therapy.
That's a weird way to get there, but I'm for it.
Yeah. Therapy on a budget.
Hey, it is expensive out here.
And
I one every week. Not cheap.
In this economy?
Got good insurance at my job.
Suffer in silence.
Yeah. Period. All right, anyway. Jesus Christ. So a good sense of family, people that you're close to. You say what kind of that help you navigate that. Okay. What's your source of grounding? That kind of may sound lame, but like isn't that what I just asked? Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Holy fuck. I was typing in the wrong box. Sorry.
I remember my first time reading too.
Christ, I can't read.
It's all right.
I'm going to write idiot right there just for me.
Get there, buddy.
Self-deprecation. It's good for you.
Better than self-defecation.
Good, yes. Looking back, are there lessons or messages you wish you could share with like your younger self? And what would have helped you the most to hear?
You matter.
I like that. Damn. You're going to get me real homosexual out here with that. Fuck. Laugh to avoid the pain.
Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
I like that a lot, man. Jeez. I was not expecting that. Why do you think that? What's the how would that have helped you? Like what's the struggle that you're prefacing with that?
There was an incident when I was really young that made me like kind of really doubt myself in a lot of aspects. Kind of destroyed part of my self-worth. And that would have been nice to hear.
Yeah. I think that's something we all need to hear. And more frequently than we'd probably like to admit. Like you said earlier, those are just outcomes of life. I call them like they're just features of existing.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be shitty. If it was great all the time, it wouldn't be great. They would
just be normal.
Yeah, that would just be normalcy. So it's like it's the point that there is shitty times, there's hard times, there's things that feel like they're gonna crush you that you may never make it through. Like that's the beauty, the roller coaster that is life. It's just that, like that's what makes it worth it. And being told something like that, like you matter, you're important, you're here for a reason. Definitely can hit you very deeply and give you that sense of that it's not for nothing.
Yeah,
because it's easy to get to that spot where you feel like it's kind of has no point, and it's a very dangerous cliff to start walking down towards, whichever if it's better for you. But
well, cliffs are usually up, so you'd walk up to it.
Yeah, fair enough. But the point being is it's a dangerous road to walk.
Yeah.
With that mindset of like, what's the point? Or do I matter? Do I have a purpose?
And that's a road that I have frequented in my life. I don't foresee, any kind of situation now where I would head back down that way because my entire mindset has been kind of altered in a positive way. Um, so I'm not worried about that anymore because I know that I matter now. And Christy, like,
Mhm.
I mean, you want to talk about what grounds me? Like, that's it. That's probably like the main kicker. Because no matter what, she's going to make sure that I keep moving forward. Physically, mentally, emotionally.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. I wasn't ready for that one, man. You got me. I was ready to look right there.
Get it back in.
Get in there. No, but I think to sum all that up, I think we should all surround ourselves with people who care about us enough to remind us of those things.
Well, and like the other thing to that is like one of the other things I've come to learn outside of like something I wish I was told, is that not all families blood.
Very true.
I've learned that in the last couple of years, like with biological family, who I'm like,
You fucking suck.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I
Very much same.
I don't want you around me. Like
Yeah.
you're toxic. It's dangerous to have a relationship with you. Like, and you're supposed to be family. And now, I've found like a parental kind of role in like another family, like this older couple. I met the wife actually like while I was working at the college, and she came and worked out with her friend, and just started talking to her. She's like, "Hey, like, do you do side work?" And I was like, "Pfft, in this economy, yeah, I'll do anything for like $20, like anything, literally." And so now, dude, I mean, I've done so much work over at their house and like gotten really close with her and her husband, and like they've got grown kids, and their kids have kids and everything. So like they're an older couple, and like I look at them more as like a parental figure than, unfortunately, like my own parental figures, like my
Yeah.
actual blood parents.
Yeah.
For better or worse. So it's like it's comforting coming to the realization of like not all families blood. It's like I don't have to have a relationship with you just because we share the same last name or
Yeah.
share the same DNA and all that. It's like
Yeah.
you're not family. Like you're just trying to paint a picture for everyone else that we are,
Yeah.
you know.
I similarly, it started much younger for me. I had a very like weird family dynamic growing up. We were super disconnected, saw each other like twice a year, and then it would act like, oh, like okay, see you next time this year, like Thanksgiving, Christmas. That was it. So it was like this weird dynamic anyway. And then as I got older, I was like, they tried to like impede in certain aspects of my life. It's like, dude, I'm 20 years old. I've seen you like 40 times
Yeah.
in life, but you want to act like you have this insight and wisdom. But like you said, you're incredibly toxic. You're unhealthy. You don't like you actually don't know anything about me collectively.
Yeah.
The couple of hours I spend around you twice a year, like you don't even know me.
Yeah.
So that now I kind of came to that same point with you, where it's like the people really who I call family are just the people who will show up for me.
Yeah.
That I can trust and know are showing up authentically for what's best for me, whether maybe I think it's best for me or not. Right? Like I know that their intentions are always true and pure. And there's something to be said for that because again, like you said, to let anyone know who maybe is dealing with some, whether it's your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, whoever it may be, is just because they're related to you doesn't mean that you owe them anything.
Yeah.
And there probably is other people who are not related to you who are showing up for you in your life, and like that can be your family, and that's okay. You don't owe those people anything.
Yeah.
How do you keep a sense of purpose beyond accomplishments or milestones?
Very good question. How do I keep a sense of purpose?
Outside of achievement?
I don't know. I'd say because I want to have a different family dynamic than what I had. Um, so ensuring that I'm successful in some capacity to take care of Christy, and then when we start having kids, I can take care of them and be present with them and support them and let them know that they matter and
Mm-hmm.
show up. Is kind of like my underlying goal um, in life now.
So for you, it's kind of rooted in like the future and the potentials of like what could be and what you want there to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one that I've sat with a bit lately and tried to understand with it myself. Is it's easy to get wrapped up and tie who you are to your job, and if you had a successful military career, or you've been successful in your professional career, like the achievements, right?
Mhm.
I've done this, I've done that, and done this. It's like, yeah, but that's not who you are.
Yeah.
Who are you? Like, those are things you've done. Like, that's not you.
Yeah.
Those are just things you've done along the way. And I think even as we become like parents or partners, like, oh, I'm a husband. It's like, yeah, but who are you?
Yeah.
Who's Michael? Like, really, who is he? And what does he want? And what's really making him go that way? And if you take all those, you take Christy or whatever away, not literally, but like, what is that version of you? And I heard like a really good therapist quote is like, you talked about how you show up for your career, you talked about how you show up for your wife, you talked about like, those are all things you are to other people. Who are you to you?
Damn.
Yeah, and it's like, fuck.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That'll make you think.
it will. And so that's what I tried to recently, like, was like, let me, like, who am I to myself? Like, I'm a father, I'm a friend, I'm a brother, a son, and like, I'm all these things. But like, who am I to myself?
Yeah.
When there's no one around, and you strip all the achievements or the accomplishments or the titles away, like, who am I? And what means something to me outside of those things? And it's like, if so, that's a really good one on a podcast was like, if you didn't get paid for the work you do, like, what would you do? It's like, he's like, give me some questions I could ask myself to make me think. And he's like, if there was no pay, what would you do? Like, what kind of work would you pursue? If no accomplishments didn't mean anything, what would you pursue to accomplish?
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter. But like, that's like, those are genuinely what you would want. Like, that's who you are. And it's like, fuck.
Damn. I love that.
So, free things to think about as you go forward after this. But just things that I try to find them for myself and go like, who am I? Just better understanding of me. Because if I can, I always tell, I think so many people do it wrong with they try to figure everything out outside of them first. And it's like, it's really hard to, you're bad at math, but I'll make it simple for you. I'm really great at it. But
Ask your dad. I'm fucking great at math.
if,
Spelling's different.
how do you spell that?
Exactly.
But everything outside of you is just a compounding value of you.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's great. You've figured out everything else in front of you or that's external. But if you haven't figured you out, you're still just multiplying or compounding that variable incorrectly.
Yeah.
So instead of like, what kind of person do I want? It's like, what kind of person am I? That's the first question. It's like, how can you know what you want if you don't even know what you are? If you're trying to aggregate that to a value, if you're trying to sum 10 and you don't know if you're a 3, a 2, a 6, or whatever, it's really hard to go, well, like, I need a 3, a 4. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know what you need because you don't even know who you are. And so I think so many people are like, this is the thing I want. It's like, is that really what you want, or is that what you've been told to want by life, society, people around you? Do you even know what you want? It's crazy. It's like, whether it's with a woman or with anyone, you ask people, what do they want? And they immediately usually go, well, fuck, I don't know, but like, what's that matter? It's like,
Yeah.
well, then how are you complaining? If you don't even have a true idea of what you would like instead or what you would rather do,
Yeah.
then how can you sit here and complain about what's currently happening? So I was in therapy, something I've talked a lot about is that I was so willing to always like look at myself first, even if it was just like, if I was this much of the problem, then like I couldn't be mad that about the other 99 point whatever percent that wasn't me. It was like, I'm this portion of it.
Yeah.
And if I can't correct that, then it doesn't matter about the rest of it because it'll still fuck up the moment it hits me. Get 99.9% of the way loaded and then crash. Like, great, who cares? So like, start with yourself. Start asking yourself what you want, what means something to you, and who you are. I think it'd be a lot more mentally and emotionally challenging, and you'll probably have a little bit of self-doubt and confusion about who you are. But on the other side of that will be understanding and the actual proper path to figuring out and seeking what you actually want.
Damn. Yeah.
It's all free. You can keep it.
See, this is what I'm saying. I don't need to go to therapy. I have all y'all who are going to therapy. You said you got that from a therapist.
I did. I just saw her today. Shout out Jennifer. She listens. What was the most unexpected lesson from your time in the Marines that's proved to be valuable in your civilian life now?
Decisions are everything.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, just with my whole case, you know, in the heat of the moment, I'm thinking, you know, with my other head, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be tight. This will be fun, and it ended up completely altering every thought process I've had ever since. So it's like your decision, no matter how small you might think it'll be, can drastically change the outcome. Whether it's an outcome that's in 5 minutes and it only lasts 5 minutes, or it's the rest of your life. So I mean, I joke now with people of like the main kicker that keeps me from doing like anything super illegal now is I'm way too pretty for prison. Like I'd be holding someone's pocket so fast.
So fast. You have a pretty face.
I do. Pretty face and a mildly tight ass.
Yeah. That mouth's good for more than running too.
And it sprints. But yeah, I mean, it's.
You think that's wrapped up in like intentionality, being intentional with the choices you make?
Yeah. And like, instead of just shooting from the hip and like knee jerk reactions to things, of like processing, like sitting and processing and seeing the different variables in it and trying to decide, okay, what is the best outcome? If I do A, I'll do this. If I do B, I'll do this. If I do C, I'm going to end up there and I don't want to do that. So, okay, so that one's out. Let me do with A. Let me look at A and B and see which one's the better outcome.
Yeah. Just being aware of, like you said, potential outcomes.
Yeah.
Like the mindfulness, like these decisions have consequences, how big or small.
Yeah.
I could kind of project future cast what they may be, but I need to at least think that there will be some later.
Yeah.
And I don't know what some, like you said, some I can calculate to what extent, but because again, you can focus on the things you can control, but just even having the wherewithal to think like, what's going to be the outcome of this?
Yeah.
Like, if I
like it right here, right now, is this
sounds great?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a blast.
Yeah.
But when I wake up tomorrow, I'm gonna be like, oh, that was so dumb, and I'm poor now. Like, why did I go to the roulette table? You know, I should have gone to bed, or you know, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like, there's consequences that are good and bad for every decision.
Yeah.
You know,
every decision has a cost.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't see it for a while. And it's like I presented this almost exact verbatim topic with my therapist, just to bring it back to that for fun. As I said, I think a lot of people will pay the shorter cost for a long period of time before they'll pay the heavier cost for a lesser period of time. So they're like, I'll pay $2 a day for the next year because whatever, it's $2 right now. They think right now, like, it's $2 right now, whatever. It's like, it's $2 for a year though. Yeah. Versus like, well, I don't want to pay the $100 right now. No, like, do you not know how to fucking make choices? Like, that's $100 one time.
Yeah.
And it's done. Again, I'm putting this into something like tangible, but or it's like over the course of the year, you're going to pay it's like so many people make choices. They're like, oh, it's just $2 a day.
Yeah.
But before they know it, it's like how they manage their money. It's like they're broke. They don't have any time left to give because they've filled their day with, it's just an hour here, an hour there, an hour here, an hour there. And it's like now their day's full. And they're like, well, I don't know how I'm not getting anything done. It's like, because you've pissed your time away.
Yeah.
And instead of just like, oh, it's going to be 3 or 4 hours this one time and it's done. Like you're like, oh, I'll nickel and dime my way through it. It's like, be aware of like long-term impacts of that choice.
Yeah.
And then I think that, to me, I view that as just intentionality, like really looking at the downstream potential consequences or the cost of the decisions you make, because they're not free.
Everything costs something.
It does. Would you say there is a way to find gratitude or even opportunity in hardship? And how do you mentally frame adversity? Sorry, go ahead.
Kind of like how we were saying of like every decision has a consequence, whether it's good or bad. It all just kind of comes down to like your outlook. Like you can be like, man, this sucks. Like I've been waiting on a promotion for X amount of time, whatever. And you're like, all right, well, you know what? If I just keep putting in the work, showing them that like, hey, I deserve this, I earned this, maybe it'll eventually come, you know? And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I think it all just comes down to your mindset of how you can kind of navigate it.
Mm-hmm. I asked that because this is like a perspective I'm like fixated on almost right now, is in finding the ability to, despite a hardship or an unfortunate circumstance, that there's something that you like in who you are that you've gained that's good because of that. Right? Even in the most like dark, fucked up space, it's like, well, I have an inability to like take time off. It's like, so it's made you very successful because you work and work and work and work. And sure, maybe could you be present with the family more? Could you turn it off and be a little bit more like just present in your life. Like, yes, but if it's led to an extensional amount of success, well, there's something good that's come of it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, again, it takes time and some real effort to like frame that as such. But in every scenario, it's like, well, this is the worst thing to happen to me. It's like, right now.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what's coming next or 3 years from now or 5. It's like, so in this moment, you're so zoomed in on right now that you're like, this is the worst thing that could happen to me. But like, maybe it's the thing that's going to set you up so that you make X, Y, and Z choice so that you end up in that position that becomes what you really actually want or need.
Yeah.
And this is just a mental frame I'm actively working towards to like with like when my actual dad passed away 10 years ago, that was like the most excruciating thing to happen to me. I was very close to him. My parents split when I was very young, and I stayed with my dad. And I thought, I'm 18, 19, just turned 19, and I'm barely become a father. And now my idea of what it and like figure of a man is now gone. How can I continue to go through life and like figure this out? And I thought, like, there's no way I can like make this happen. Like, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And now with 10 years behind me, I can say that there's no way I become who I am today without losing him, without no longer having that like reference point.
Yeah.
Like I had to recreate one within myself. There was no like, oh, that's what that looks like. It was like, I have to become this,
Yeah.
this point of reference. I have to become the things that I think and can remember that he was. Right? And again, that's not nothing, right? Like there's an insane value attached to that, but it took many nights of wondering if I mattered and how I was going to figure it out and what was tomorrow or next month or next year going to be like, and was I really capable of being that kind of person, and could I really be a good father and a good friend and potentially be a husband one day, and was I worth that love? And despite every fuck up I made, was I someone who was deserving of all those things?
Yeah.
And there was no, especially as being like a guy, like there was nobody there truly and wholeheartedly in some instance to like remind me that I was. So I was like, I eventually kind of had to create it within myself.
Yeah.
And though that was like a very long journey and a lonely one, it's cultivated who I am today. And I can run you a list of things that it's been very beneficial for me for. But in that moment, I would like, even some days, if you catch me on the right day and I'm feeling like a bitch, I'd give years of my life away for just moments to talk to him again.
Yeah.
But I can also be reflective and go, I know that there's a lot of good, great, and amazing things about who I am and the life I have that if he was here, I don't know who I would be.
Yeah.
And so just to give you the full scope of like what I'm meaning when I'm asking that, to say like, whatever you've been through, whether it was good or bad, especially if it was bad, there's something good you can take from it. And it may take some time and some real searching for, but I don't believe there's such thing as true darkness. There's some light where you wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's just being intentional enough to seek it. It's really easy to feel bad for yourself, to be miserable.
Oh, it's
the easiest, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why so many people succumb to it. Sorry, Petty. But it's also why it's the most valuable. It's because it is the most difficult. It's the most difficult thing to pursue and look and go like, what good did this give me?
Yeah.
And there's like a very short little story given by, it was Dan Bilzerian actually said it. And it's ironic to say that, but he said, have you heard I don't remember what the story is, but it's like this little Japanese boy. And he says like, the boy, a horse fell on the boy and broke his leg. It's like, this is the worst thing to happen to him. It's like, maybe. It's like, but then the next week, the town gets in a war with a neighboring nation, and they're starting to recruit young men. So now he doesn't have to go to war.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, oh, this is the best thing to happen to me.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. Right. Like, because you don't know what's next. And so you don't know what's going to happen 2 or 3 or 5 things from now. And that compounding effect is your life. And so it's just really easy to hyper focus and zoom in on the micro, the right now, when you don't know what it's going to be. Like, for instance, with your dog, right? Then you got this guy. Right? That was a miserable time.
Yeah.
And emotionally felt like we don't have everything. We're going to have a dog again.
Yeah.
Right. And now you got this guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the worst thing to happen to me. It's like, maybe for right now it is. But you don't know what's next.
Well, that's kind of how it felt with Chrissy's mom just passing away in April. Was Like never really had like a motherly figure growing up. Like she was there, but she wasn't.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got home from Japan and met her, she just like swallowed me up and brought me in and
She was
like
the best.
made me like legitimately feel like she birthed me. Like I
Mhm.
really felt like I was her son. Um, and like just watching the cancer just take over and yeah, dude, it was hard. Because when she passed, I was like, man, it felt like my biological mom had passed away. And so it was extremely hard for me to kind of navigate because I felt like I didn't have a right to be sad because I'm trying to be there for Christy. You
Mhm.
know, she just lost her biological mom, like
Yeah.
her last parent.
Yeah.
Like her dad passed in 2015 from a heart attack, and now her mom passed. Like
Yeah.
she's an orphan essentially. So I'm trying to like sit there and console her and support her and help her and just get her up out of bed in the morning, when it first
Yeah.
happened and stuff. And at the same time, I just had to just bury like all of my emotion with it because I was like, I just didn't feel like I deserved it. Like I didn't deserve to be sad because I only knew her for the last 3 years or so, and it's like she wasn't my mom. Like she wasn't my biological mom, but
Yeah.
she had just brought me into the fold like without a second question about it. Yeah. And like that felt like it was like the worst thing that happened, like losing a parent.
Yeah.
But like from that, me and Chris are like, okay, we need to get out of that. Like, because we are living with her at the time and everything. And we are like, all right, well, she's gone. We got to figure out what to do now. And now we have a house, we have like our own space. And it's nice. Like we love having our own place that we can do whatever we want with. But like now we can kind of joke about it or, be more lighthearted, but we're like, man, like we'll be like shopping for stuff, for the house. And Chris would be like, oh, look how shiny that is. Like Patty would have put that in our house or like forced us to put that in the house, like some big crystal chandelier or something, cause she was just always over and over the top.
Yeah. She liked that gaudy shit.
Yeah, super bougie. So like, yeah, it sucked because we lost her, but I feel like Christy and her brothers got closer. Like one of her brothers moved in with us to the house, and then the younger brother, he's in college. He's going to graduate this semester, and he's going to move in with us because they're all super tight knit. Like the one that's already living with us, he quit his job up in Oklahoma to move back down. Yeah, like just it brought all of them super close. Yeah. So I mean, it was horrible, but there is a silver lining.
Yeah. There is good to be had in it.
Yeah.
And I think it sounds like I'm not trying to by any means sound dismissive, but sometimes you need something just bad enough to push you.
Yeah.
Like I look at it as like I was weak and lazy and really not in the best position to be a good father or be a good friend or be a good partner when my dad was around because I was kind of leveraging that as like a crutch to like not take responsibility for enough things in my life, despite I was only 19, but no excuse. Like that was the outcomes. And so it was like when that crutch was kicked out from under me, I fell on my face.
Yeah.
And there's something about that makes you better, right? Because now you're in the position where it's like you're gonna figure it the fuck out or you're not.
Yeah.
And now there's no one there who's gonna save you or figure it out for you. Like you have to do it. And it's this interesting analogy. It says like if things were just a little worse, many people would do things differently. If their job was just a little bit worse, if their partner was just a little more not nice, if that boss was just a little bit more of a dick, like they'd quit. And they would infinitely increase their life because they would go find something else, or they'd find a different partner, or they'd find a new job, or they'd, like if it was just a little worse, like it's bad, but not bad enough to actually make you do anything different yet. And I think these harder, more challenging periods of our life, is sometimes those turn out to be the things that were bad enough to actually make us move.
Yeah.
And like shift the way we think or change the way we're behaving, like to shift our habits, right? And like you said, there, like there's always you have to seek them out. They're not just gonna like fall in front of your face. Like, look at all these good things that happened because someone I care about passed away or
Yeah.
whatever. But like if you look, like you'll find them buried everywhere. You know,
Yeah.
closeness and relationships with Christy and the boys and you know maybe in some ways between the two of you.
Yeah.
You know, because of having to lean on each other in that hard time, right? And so it's like there's so much there. You have to look for it.
Yeah.
Not just gonna like fall in your lap. But when you do start to look, it's like, oh shit, like there's all these little specks of goodness sprinkled in.
Yeah.
Love is unique in that way too. There's something you said about Patty is it's very interesting how true and genuine like love from someone can like make you feel that way, like that you're just part of them, you know, part of their family. And I think that ties back to what we said earlier with, you know, the people who show up as that's whose family, because like feeling that like I think we as people have this like even though I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but I doubt you are very much of an artist by default. And it's like, but we can look at something that someone that is beautiful work and go like, wow, that's good work. And inversely, we can go like, nah, that looks like shit.
Yeah.
And same thing with music, whether your preference of taste, like you can hear something and go like, wow, like that's like that to be that precise and that like in tune with how the beat flows and to string the notes together in that way, like that sounds really great.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing is true with like love. And when you feel a certain type of love from someone, you're like, nah, this is different.
Yeah.
Like this is what it should be. And I think that's how you know if like it's those are the people you want to surround yourself with. Like we can always, whether we've ever experienced it or not, the moment we do, we can appreciate it. Like, oh, I know what this is, despite maybe never feeling it or experiencing it in our life. And I think that there's a uniqueness to that. As we always kind of have this idea of knowing what the ideal state of something is, whether that be love, music, art, whatever. We have like, no, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Right there. You can look at a couple and go like, oh no, like look at that's what a relationship is. Like I'm arguing with this bitch every 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't look like that. The fuck it, like that's what it should look like.
Yeah.
And I always find that very interesting.
Well, it's like how I can't remember where I heard this, but it was like there's a 4 a.m. friend and a 4 p.m. friend. The 4 a.m. one that, you know, if you call, they're going to pick up the phone and pull up, you know, wherever you're at, wherever you need help with. And then the 4 p.m. friend's like, well, wait till I get off work. Let me see. Let me check my schedule. And it's those 4 a.m. people that you want around.
Yeah.
And it's that 4 a.m. person that you want to be, you know, for the people that are around you.
Definitely. Trying to see which one I want to go with. How do you make decisions when you feel torn? Do you have like a framework or a guide that you use in order to help kind of navigate those decisions?
Honestly, I mean, I'll look at what is easier first, just by default.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the less challenging out of the two?
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I mean, just kind of go from there. Of like, it starts there, and then it's like, okay, but now what's the end result? Like, how is this? Because it's not about me anymore. I mean, now I have Christine, I've got the dog, now I've got her brothers. And so it's like, okay, yeah, I can go on this business trip and be away for a month, but how is that going to affect everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
Will it be good for my career? Maybe, maybe not. But will this, you know, if I'm going to miss Chrissy's birthday during it,
is it worth that?
Yeah. So I mean, it comes back to like, you know, the outcomes. Like it's like a cost reward benefit or like
cost benefit analysis.
Yeah. I'm a college dropout.
It's all right. Hey, doesn't matter, man.
But yeah, that's how I kind of weigh things too. It's like that instant gratification or that long delayed gratification of, yeah, I might want this right here, right now. Go pick up a Yoo-hoo from the taco stand, or wait until I get off work, you know, and I can buy a whole fucking case of them.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you say that because I've been enamored by what you said initially. Like I look at what's less challenging. I think it's interesting. Like people are always going to default to convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I would see all the time. I'll pay $6 for the gallon of milk at the gas station because it's closer to the house than going to the store where I get it for half the cost, like you said there. But more to that being like the like you said the long term gain, right? Like it's if you wait longer, usually you'll find out if you want it as bad as you think you do, because you're not
Yeah.
going to get anything immediately from it. And that usually makes you feel better for longer, right? Versus the like, so like if I eat the donut, it's like feel good right now, but then for the rest of the day I beat myself up about it and tell myself I'm a fat piece of shit. It's like, so it made me feel good for 6 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Like you said, like what's the log?
It's a long
Is
time.
it sexually? It is, yeah, for sure. 4.5 more than I can go if I was not too into it, but if I was really into it, about 5.5 minutes longer. But who's counting?
I can't count.
Me either. But the point there being more that, like we said earlier, like being mindful of the impact and the continuous downstream consequences of those choices. I think a lot of people think that what makes them feel good now will make them feel good always. It's like, no. I think that maybe it's not giving you a whole lot right now, as far as like maybe fulfillment or like scratching that itch for you, is like when it does later, it's going to mean a lot more.
One like a beautiful example of it is working out. Is
100%. Yeah.
like you can go for a week and you're like, man, I still look like a fat piece of shit. I still have these man tits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why aren't they going away? Like, I'm crushing them. I'm getting on the Stairmaster. I'm doing this. I'm going running. I'm doing, all these things. I'm eating good, but nothing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, well, I'll just quit. It's like, well, you want to have a heart attack in 5 years, or be on, dialysis or have diabetes or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like working out is like kind of the core of like people's determination in life.
I agree. Because you get the pump is like a temporary future cast of what you could look like normally. So if I continue to work out for long enough, I could look like this.
Yeah.
Natural, like without a pump. Okay. So you get an idea of what you could look like. But it's also, like you said there, with when you're unfit or you're unhealthy, it's like you didn't gain. And this is a perspective I give to people all the time. They ask me about health advice and how to lose weight. And I'm like,
why?
I know, right? I'm a disgusting bitch. But it's like, if you have a boat and there's a hole in it and water starts to fill up your boat, it's like you starting to go to the gym and eat right. It's just you clogging the hole. Now you still have got to get the bucket and scoop all the fucking water out. Like it didn't just get in there like instantly. Now your boat's full of water. It's like inversely, you're not going to get it all out because you went one time. Like there's a progressional movement over time to now the boat's empty. Oh, now you're fit. But it doesn't happen instantly, just like you didn't get fat instantly.
Yeah.
Correcting your life, you don't go from I'm in this position I hate and I don't like where I'm at to like I'm in the most optimal ideal state.
Yeah.
Like no, there's incremental steps to getting to where you want to be.
When working out it's a chain reaction of so many things, like just outside of health. Like, I'm not this big fitness nut, like I work out every day at lunch, but I'm not trying to be, the next like Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything like that. Yeah. But like I feel good. I'm mentally like healthier, physically healthier, emotionally healthier. Like, because if I'm all bundled up about something at work, I go to the gym and I can get rid of it. And just I can tune everything else out, forget about, the meetings, forget about everything that's going on. And it's just me in there just destroying myself. And it like, even with like all the traveling that I do, like if someone walks in a room and they're like in shape, I'm like, nice. Like that,
there's something, even if they're on gear and things, like there's work that has to be done.
Like, you don't wake up and just have that, it's
you
like,
had to do the work. You had to diet. You had to be disciplined. You had to be consistent over an extended period of time to do that. And I think, especially as men, that's like a big thing for us, and why we're so like, about it, is because like we know it's the thing that like it doesn't cost anything, but it weighs and has so much value to it. Because again, like no one can go to the gym for you. No one can lift the weight for you. No one can make you eat the food. Like even if you have a chef or whatever, like you still have to fit. Like you still have to eat it. You still have to
look at DJ Khaled.
Yeah,
he's got his own chef and he's still fat.
Still fat fuck. Love DJ Khaled. Keep dropping the beats, but Jesus Christ, like it's like there's a respect to it because it's earned. Yeah, there's no way you could buy it or like cheat the way there. Like that's why the appreciation for like a muscular build is so high. It's like you have to earn it. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Last one. How do you stay true to yourself despite all the roles you've played in your life? That be Marine, husband, friend, son, brother. And what does authenticity mean to you now?
Honestly, it's just being my true self. Like for one of my trips, we had to go up to Midland to see some customers, and I stayed. One of my sisters lives up there, and so I stayed at her house. Like while we're up there, and I got caught on my sister's Ring camera at like 3 a.m. coming back from the bar with her customers, and she had no lights on outside, so like my phone was dead, so I couldn't get the door code off of my phone to get into her house. So I was like searching around, hammered, looking for an outlet in the dark, and like on the Ring camera, I just rip a hard fart, and it was like this long fart, and then like a sigh of relief, and then there's no one else out there. It's like 3 a.m. and I was just like, that was a fucking good one, bud. And like my sisters love that because they're like, dude, that's you. Like that's you in the moment. You're not trying to impress anyone. Like you're not trying to make anyone laugh. You're just who you are. And so like, I think that's what it kind of boils down to, is that just, if you're a piece of shit, you're a piece of shit. Be a piece of shit, you know? But
I love that. Yes.
I love talking to people. I love like being able to like walk into a room and people are like, oh, you know, and just whether it's making people laugh or whatever it might be. Just, you know, not being the center of attention, but just
being able to be
trying to make a difference in some capacity, where if I can tell someone a quick joke and they're like, wow, that dude's funny, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, they might be having a crappy day, but it's like, okay, that, you know, that kind of helped. Or if it's, you know, like, I don't know, like just, yeah, memorable. Yeah.
So just
I don't
being
know.
that's what authenticity would mean to you, just being yourself.
Yeah, like what's the point of putting on a facade for somebody, you know, for whoever? You don't really gain anything out of it outside of maybe appeasement from whoever it might be, like if it's your boss or coworkers or your spouse or something, you know, having to put on this face for them.
I think that's what we talk about with the long term thing. It's like, yeah, in the short term, like you feel good because you weren't disruptive or didn't cause any issue, but you live with yourself every day, and
Yeah.
it's gonna like eat at you that like that wasn't a free thing. Like you're not being true to yourself, and that's like a very heavy cost that's going to pay or cost you dividends like every day of your life.
Yeah.
And at a much greater rate because you're with you all the time.
Yeah.
You know, versus like you're just fragmentedly with these other people. So it's like, why deteriorate so much of you in a perpetual state for temporary appeasement to others?
Yeah. Well, that's what I've learned about, like, especially now being in, you know, going from the Marines where anything and everything said is free game.
Yeah.
Like everyone can get made fun of and everything will be said in that time. To going into like corporate America where it's like people are like, you know, trying to feel the room out first when they walk in.
Yeah, they gotta test the water.
And dude, I just love to riff, and I'll just walk in and I'm like, we'll try this one out. Let's, you know,
we'll see what we got.
Because I'll think of stuff just like super quick. Like all the time, my boss is like, he'll say something and I'll rip back with something. He's like, where do you even come up with this stuff? I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like it's just the way my brain works.
It just happens.
Maybe it's ADD or whatever. Maybe it's the childhood traumas.
Heavy on childhood trauma. Heavy on that.
A little trauma bonding goes a long way.
It does.
But yeah, like, I mean, I've said some stuff where I'm like, oh, that, you know, okay, that wasn't good. You know, no one laughed at that.
That one didn't land.
Everyone is super serious right now. And I'm like, okay, you know, now I know around this customer, you know, kind of dial it back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He's not here, you know, he's here for business. He's not here to play. You know, and then we have other customers that will just giggle like schoolgirls, you know? So it's, in a way, it's staying true to myself, but also navigating other people in a professional manner.
It's just like knowing and having the understanding to know like where you are, and like what you can do, right? Like what you can do at home with when you're with your wife is different than what you can do when you're with your coworkers at work, right? And like this still you, like you're not faking anything, but like what you're allowing them to see or the version of you that they get, it's still you, but it's a segmented version of that.
Yeah.
And earlier you said, I don't know why people do that. I think it's because there's just, like we said earlier, there's fear. Like, what if I was really myself? What would people think?
Yeah.
I think in a previous portion of my life, I think that was huge for me, is I was so unwilling to be myself because I was so scared of what other people would think.
Yeah.
You know, not that again, that I didn't want to be, but it was just, I had been at some point told that that was bad or it wasn't okay, or that there was something wrong with that. And so I was like, oh, if one person thinks that, then like, I'm naive, I'm young, like that's what everyone must think.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you find yourself, you're 24 and you still don't know who you are. something happened when you were 9 and, your mom or dad told you fucking suck. And now it's like, you've got 15 years of this thing you've attached yourself to, but like, that's not the reality at all. You just don't know, So I think that's how I always like to wonder, like, why it eats up so much of my mind. It's like, why do people do the things they do? So I always look at it as like, what are the precursors that lead to that?
Yeah.
How did we end up here? We said some childhood trauma or whatever the case may be. It's always interesting to try and sort that out and have the ability to like not take things too serious.
Yeah.
So I think it's things in that nature. These damn trick-or-treaters. Happy Halloween to everyone.
Hey, you're okay.
But all right, well, on that note, these damn turds. What's up, buddy? Hi, buddy. Okay, well, we're good. Yeah, thank you. All that to say, live authentically. Be who you are, and don't be so scared of what other people think. Because at the end of the day, you have to lay down with yourself. And if you can't be okay with yourself, that's more valuable and more important than what other people can be okay with.
Yeah.
So before we go, I always like to ask people if they have anything they'd like to share, or like a quote or an idea or something, just to maybe give to other people, something they could think about.
Damn.
I usually give people that one. I did. I'm sorry. I gave you all the other ones except that one.
Appreciate it.
It's on me.
A quote or something.
Like a thought, a perspective, an idea, anything you would maybe.
I say just don't get caught up in the bullshit. Like, life is so short. It's not worth the small minor inconvenience and blowing it up into something that it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to do nothing. What's the point of it?
Yeah.
Like, life's short, have a fucking good time with it.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how many days we have, how many hours, minutes, years, whatever. I could walk out and leave this place tonight and get T-boned and boop, gone.
Game over.
Which, I mean, would be perfectly fitting for what I just said.
Literally.
Be like, guys, listen to this guy.
At least he's living it. He's living it.
Was. But, it's not worth all this nonsense and getting upset, like all stuff with like politics and everything. It's like, why are you getting your blood pressure up? Like,
yeah,
whatever, dude.
Don't take it so serious.
Yeah. Life's an adventure. Just roll with it.
Yeah.
Navigate it as best as you can. It's not up to us where it goes.
Yeah, you have so much less control than you think.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of it. And like you said, it's if you zoom out far enough, none of it matters anyway. It's not to sound negative, it's just don't fucking care. Like, don't take it so serious.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're all playing the same game. It's going to end the same way for all of us.
Yeah. Like, one of the things my sister, she says is, if you think your life is bad, imagine a circle of people. Everyone puts their problems, like what they think is their biggest problems, in a circle. And if you saw what everyone else's problems were, you'd take your shit back so bad, because you're like, whoa, okay, I'm not dealing with what he's dealing with. Mm-hmm. Holy shit. Never mind.
Yeah.
My life isn't all that bad.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme, it's not.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you just got to push through it. Like, figure it out.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with people that can help you and guide you and mentor you, and support you, and you'll be living.
I agree. I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember it very well, but it was, I listened to a Chris Williamson podcast. It's just like pretty much everything I say is coming from this, but in my quotes per se, but he talked with Chris Bumstead, the 6-time now running Mr. Olympia, retired. Shout out Chris, what a guy. Maybe one day he'll be on here. We're prophesizing.
We've all seen this show. Let's be real.
Yeah, not true. But he was talking about inadequacy towards winning and how you could win and still feel like, it could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris then said to him, he said, so like what you're saying is like your pursuit for perfection is crippling you more than the work itself. Like your idea of like, I have to be perfect. I have to nail every single day, every single workout, every single rep, every day to become Mr. Olympia is more crippling than just doing the workout.
Yeah.
And to say it's like, to ultimately be the best at something, it's not perfection that's going to make you the best. It's the consistency to show up on the days you don't want to, on the day you're tired, the days you're sore, the day you want to eat something else and you eat the fucking boring ass chicken and rice, and like you do that over enough period of time, compounded by the work, like success will be there.
Yeah.
But what's hindering your ability for growth is the unnecessary stress that you're putting on yourself because you're not perfecting every single thing. It's like success isn't made up in perfection, it's made up in the consistency.
Yeah.
And it's like, especially when you're like trying to get that lean and that shredded, it's like if you spike your cortisol the next day, you'll look insanely different because now you're like holding all this stress.
Yeah.
And now like, and it becomes this vicious cycle. So then you stress more about because you're not like where you need to be 4 weeks out. And so then you stress more and you're worried about your food and you're over like, and it just becomes this compounding thing. So I just found that very interesting. Like zoom out enough and go like, my pursuit for perfection, like to wanting to be so good at these things in my life is more hindering than the challenge of the things themselves, the things I'm pursuing.
Yeah, you're getting caught up in the wrong shit, man.
Yeah. It's like if everything has to be perfect, then by definition, nothing can be perfect.
Yeah.
This is very philosophical to
Very
step back
perfect.
and go like, very perfect. Yes. Perfectly imperfect. So, well, man, I've enjoyed it and I appreciate you last minutely being willing to come on, and it means a lot to me. So thank you.
It was a good time. Appreciate you having me.
Of course, man. Well, everyone, we're gonna cut the poor jokes out. if you're hearing this and going, "What poor jokes?" We got it right because you didn't hear them. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode. I hope you enjoy it. Okay.